I wanted to do a few videos on just a few little darkroom tricks that I've picked up along the way. The first one is one of the most annoying things in the darkroom is dust. And what eventually you will run into, if this hasn't already happened to you, is you will end up with little black specks on your prints. And this is actually caused by dust on your film. This usually happens, I've noticed that it happens for me more on medium and large format a lot more. And what happens is when you're loading your film holders and whatever, as meticulous as you are, as cleanly as you can be, you want to always make sure you minimize the dust, but inevitably you will end up with a little black speck on one of your prints. There are a few different ways that you can take care of this. One is you can etch the print. Another is you can retouch the negative. I typically don't use either of those two ways. What I like to do is bleach the black speck on the print and then retouch it back with spotting dyes. What I use is just the regular bromide and potassium ferricyanide and bromide bleach, the same one that I use to do sepia toning to bleach back and redevelop. But basically what you need is potassium ferricyanide. Now this is the way I mix it up for my bleach, and like I said, I use it just straight, and it's 100 grams of potassium ferricyanide to 100 grams of potassium bromide. You don't need the bromide in there, but if you go too far with the bleaching, this will allow you to redevelop it in the same developer, and it should come back the same. So if you kind of overdo it, it can save your butt that way. I'm going to show you how I do it, so let's go get this started. So what I like to do is use the just straight potassium ferricyanide bleach, put a little tiny bit of this in a little dish. That is plenty. Probably need about a quarter of that. Now I find this to be the most important part for me. What I do is take a toothpick. In this case, it's a colored toothpick. I couldn't find a regular toothpick. I wouldn't use a colored one if I could find a regular one, but we're gonna give it a try. Hopefully it doesn't color my prints. Then we're gonna take a razor blade, and I'm just gonna very lightly shave this off. Make a really, really fine point. I've tried this method using brushes, and the spots just end up being way too big and unruly. I found that this way works the best for controlling and just getting rid of the black spot. So you want to make this as fine as you can. That way you can really pinpoint it. So what happens is I'm going to dip this in the bleach, and it gets soaked up in the wood a little bit. So I'm going to get the print ready, and then I'll show you how I do this. So this is the print that I'm going to be spotting. And as you can see, I just printed it. I put it through the develop, stop, and the first fix. And because I always use a 2-bath fixer, I will simply put it in the second bath after I'm done bleaching the little black spot. Actually spots in this case. So you're gonna have to, if you don't use 2-bath fixer, you're still, after you do this, you're gonna have to fix it in the fixer. So it works out really well. When I know I'm gonna have to do this, I just, after the first fix, I'm gonna give it a little rinse, and then we're gonna go ahead and fix the spot. All right, so I'm giving it a little wash, and then I'm using a flat bottomed tray, and I just have it propped up on a smaller tray. That way it's angled at me a little bit. And then I'm just gonna take it out of the rinse water here. And this particular negative was from a 4x5, and that's, you'll notice that you start seeing a lot more things on 4x5. You always want to be as careful as you can, and actually on this one, it's not my fault. There was some white or some black spots in the snow, and I'm not sure what they were, but they're on multiple negatives in the same spot. So that's why I know it wasn't dust on the negative. But then I'm going to take, in my case, you're going to take a squeegee. In my case, it's just a windshield wiper, and we're just going to squeegee it off. You don't want the water to be pooled up on there. take that potassium ferricyanide. Let me see if I could show you this without dumping it all over the print. You gotta be careful with potassium. Anytime it's in and around your print, if you splash it or anything gets on there, it will definitely leave big white marks everywhere. So I'm gonna just take the toothpick that I shaved down and just dunk it in here. And then very carefully, and you don't wanna jab it because you will indent the print, but just very carefully touch on the black spots. And it helps to just take a deep breath. And then once you think you got it, there, that looks good. What you want to do is rinse it right away because it will kind of keep swelling. And so as soon as that black is gone, you want to get it out of that. You want to rinse it, and then you move on to the next little spot. So once I rinse it for a little bit, I'll turn the water off. And I apologize. I realize it's probably loud. In fact, let me turn my enlarger off too here. There we go. That's better. So I'm going to squeegee it again. Carefully. And I find that this toothpick method, you can get really, really, really detailed, and you're not leaving these huge white blotches that are just a pain in the butt to retouch. These end up being, you can really get just the spot. I don't, it's going to be kind of hard to see this, but you can get just the spot that you're going for, and it works out pretty good. I've used the other methods, and I've as far as etching and spotting the negatives, and this hands down works the best for me. If you're going to spot the negatives, I recommend using like a clear sheet over the negative and then spotting on that. Something, you'd have to use like a pin registration carrier or something like that. And that way you're not spotting on the negative, because even with the finest point markers and brushes and dyes, I still find that once you enlarge, especially if you do a bigger enlargement, you end up just with these huge spots that you got to retouch, and it looks just terrible. So this makes the retouching job much easier. So I'm going to dip this in again. And again, you want to lightly do it because it's very easy to puncture the, if you press hard, you'll be leaving little dimples in the paper. And you don't want to do that. There we go, that one's done. And the key here is just, pardon me, I had a toothpick in my mouth. The key here is just subtlety, and trying to do as little as you have to. Like I said, I've had about 4 cups of coffee today, so that doesn't make it any easier. But sometimes just taking a deep breath out and then going in and touching it real lightly. And this does take some patience too. But like I said, this is by far the best way that I've found to do it. So then you just want to check the rest of the print. Make sure you're not missing any. And like I said, there was a few on this one that I could have left them, but it was kind of bugging me because, here was all this really cool ice and snow, and then it looked like there were dust spots from the negative on it, which ended up just being little bits of debris in the snow. So you can fix it that way too. All right, now for this same print, before I actually put it back in put it in the second fixer, now is also, if I'm gonna do any localized bleaching on the print, now's the perfect time to do it. I don't do a ton of this, but this particular image is one that I even used the Dodge mask. So there was all this ice, frozen ice, and then behind it, because this was by the waterfalls, water was coming down, and there was this tiny little stream of waterfall right here. And it was quite dark in the straight print, and I even used a Dodge mask in here to bring this up. And I could have added more density to the Dodge mask, but it started getting to a point where I liked it. But I think right now I'm going to just try and see if I like it better, just adding a little bit more highlight to this water, just the top part of this water. So to do that, I'm going to use the same exact thing I used to bleach out those little black spots. Only what I'm going to do is dilute it. So the same bleach The stock solution is 100 grams of potassium ferricyanide to 100 grams of bromide to 1 liter of water. And I'm gonna take 5 milliliters. Let me not dump this all over the print. I'm gonna take 5 milliliters into 100. So I used 5 milliliters into 100 because I want it to be pretty dilute. I don't want it to go too fast. I mean, you saw how it just zapped those little black spots. So if I go too fast, it's gonna overdo it. So I want this to be real subtle. It's really, really easy to overdo this. So be careful. You're gonna definitely want running water with this. So I'm gonna turn that on now. And I'm just gonna take a light brush. This is actually a heavier or a thicker spotting brush. It's a Winsor Newton Regency Gold 515, but you can use any brush that fits the size that you need. So I'm just gonna lightly just take a little bit of bleach, and I'm gonna have the hose ready, and I'm kind of gonna be watching it. And I'm trying to work around the camera too, so I apologize. So I'm just gonna lightly brush this on. And then I'm just gonna let it sit for a second. Like I said, I want to go subtle with it, so I don't want it too crazy. A little bit more. And this adds contrast as well. So it starts with the upper highlights and it bleaches those first, and then it kind of works its way down, just like it would if you were bleaching it for, you know, to do a sepia tone. Oh, I need more water. So you definitely don't want to get the bleach everywhere. And I don't know if you can notice that, but it definitely brightened it up a bit. I might do just a tad more because I want the focus. Like I like that contrast right there, and I really like the fact that, you know, you get these really cool icicles. I don't know what to call them. Frozen waterfalls, and then you got this nice you know, flow of water going behind it. And this was shot on HP5 4x5 with my Linhof. And yes, let's just take a look at that. And having the bromide and the bleach here, if you do go too far, you can redevelop. And that's another reason that I like, but if I redevelop right now, I'll have to bleach back those spots too. So you might want to, if you spot the print, if you bleach the spots, then you might want to fix it before you do this, because that way you could go back without having to go all the way back. So I didn't really think about that, but anyway, I'm just gonna put a tad more bleach, and I think we'll call it good, because this stuff can really get away from you. And I think that looks good. And a lot of times it really, really can help to have just a regular print just like it next to it before you start bleaching. Because once it dries, sometimes you'd be like, oh man, like it, you know, it went totally white in this like one little area. But don't be afraid to go in with spotting dyes and clean that up a little bit too, you know, just like you would normally spot, you know, print. But I think I like that. I think that looks good. So now I'm gonna do the final fix, and then all this print needs to be is toned. We should be good to go. So I really hope this helped some of you out. I know for me, this was one of the biggest frustrations, and continues to be one of the biggest frustrations, is when little things like this happen, when you get a black spot on your print, or you know, you do everything right, but you just can't figure something out. And for a long time, I would just scrap prints, I would scrap negatives because of issues like this. And you know, I used to get so obsessed about being dust-free and making sure everything was clean and this and that. And I'm still very conscious of that. But somewhere along the way, I was like, you know what, maybe I just need to learn to deal with the dust. And you know, other photographers are other photographers are able to, you know, make these amazing prints, and it doesn't seem to be stopping them. So how are they doing that? And that was another area where I couldn't find a lot of good solid information. And this is one of the things where I learned that this is the technique that works best for me. So you might like to retouch the negatives, totally fine. You might like to etch the prints. I've done that too and had success. With etching the prints, I've found that some emulsions work better than others. But for me, I'm gonna do it this way. I've had a lot of success with it. The toothpick method is, for me, the best. And I definitely think you should give it a try if this is something you've been struggling with, or next time you have a black spot on one of your prints, give it a shot. I will try and do a follow-up video on how I spot my prints as well, because I got a few tips when doing that too. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, give me a like, and give me a comment down below. Let me know if there's something else you want me to cover, something I'm doing right, something I'm doing wrong. But as always, I appreciate it, and have a good one.